Is it up? Yeah, we'll see.
No, it's not open.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Call meeting to order. Right,
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No abstentions this time? First on the agenda, police report.
Well, you have a copy of the police report in your packet.
Fire report.
Well, we had a total of 34 runs for month of August, 12 fires, which 5 were false alarms, 3 down wires, 1 illegal burn, 1 tree across the road, a hazmat investigation, and 1 citizen complaint, 17 medicals, 2 of which were in the village, and 4 PIs.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, thank you.
County Commissioner. Not here, I guess. Planning Commission.
Meeting was canceled.
Okay. DDA.
Well, we discussed, the pavilion. And we tabled it. For now.
Well, I'll speak too when you're done, Janet, if that's okay. Just let me know when you're done.
Okay.
So,
We tabled it until the next meeting. There's some people that are thinking that the village, we might save the money for the village.
Due to our well problem and the dredging through
Water
the
problems,
lagoon,
yeah.
issues like that, they didn't really wanna. I wasn't there, so
Correct.
that's just what I was told. So, hopefully we can straighten it out by next meeting.
you guys done?
Yep.
So I'm part of the DDA as well, and so part of the talk was, everybody wants the park, which I agree as well, but when all this stuff came about with the park, how many years ago? Anybody, 25, 30? So, I don't think our infrastructure was in the shape it is now, and so I think as some of the members on the DDA, including myself, I think are more willing to put trails and things like that in the park that aren't gonna cost a whole lot of money. I know, 2 of the members met with Edwards Trees today about clearing out some of the trails that are in existence, putting wood chips and things on there, to help with that. We talked about putting benches, a very much more inexpensive way, I think, to utilize what is there as opposed to dropping big money on the pavilion. And like John had mentioned and Janet had mentioned, I think I'll speak for me as one of the members with a couple others. I think we would rather contribute more towards the infrastructure issues, as in well and sewer, before we move forward with something like the pavilion. So that's the general consensus. Like I said, nothing's been actually voted on, but I think that's the feeling of some of the DDA members. Like, hey, let's make sure we don't have a beautiful pavilion sitting up there and not being used, as opposed to potential issues right here in the village with the, taxpayers, things like that. So, pretty much sum it up. Janet?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Attorney report, everything down below, or you got?
So the water line extension, just to update on that. We have sent over a new offer to the settling group, and their attorney was he was on a long vacation every year about this time, so he was out of office for about a month. So he got back, contacted us, asked us what, you know, if we were planning to make a renewed offer, and we informed him we had a few weeks ago. So right now our understanding is that he's presenting to his client and waiting to hear back from him. Nothing else.
Council communication.
Well, kind of just to touch base on what was spoke about at the DDA meeting, I have started looking into some very low or no interest loans that the village can apply for to possibly do like the well and the sewer lagoon updates and upgrades and things.
Without making ourselves go broke.
Correct, and you know, that way we do still have money set aside for, knock on wood, if we do have any other problems or anything else that comes up, you know, without completely depreciating like our water fund on a new well or anything like that. So I have started to look into that. So just kinda wanna let you guys know that.
Need a motion on it, nothing else, approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right, looks like public time.
I'll go first. I first want to note on the record here and for the live stream that when Attorney Michael Gildner walked into this room, he came up to, you can see my things are here, and he said, "Is this seat open?" That was an intimidation tactic, and he knows very well that I have on the record he is to have nothing to do with me for safety reasons and for other reasons. So that's just for the record. So I will pass around the photos that go with the ORV complaints. Saturday night, it was 9:57, and there was one going down the road. There was one evening, I think it was September 3rd, that within the space of 1 minute, as I drove home from work, 3 golf carts were out after the curfew. It was getting dark, and one had a little baby. And then they went down the rail trail. People are still going down that rail trail. And in case you guys don't get why that is such a problem, especially right now, the amount of dust getting kicked up by golf carts going down there past the sign that says authorized vehicles only can really bother a lot of people's breathing. It can kick up, you know, those vehicles can kick up rocks in people's faces. It is really not safe on a pedestrian level whatsoever. All right, so when it comes to the park, Metamora Community Park, which is right down there on Oak Street, we're now at 11 years and 1 month since that was bought by the DDA for $350,000. And we still have not a single sign letting people know that that is open to the public. There was already a wood chip trail out there, right? But vehicle use of that trail chewed up all those wood chips at a much faster rate than they were to deteriorate, and flattened it out and made it slippery in a lot of places. So, gosh, I'm waiting to hear on a plan for that, and boy, this keeps getting put on the back burner. How many more years is it gonna take? A sign is maybe a few $100 at most, and we still don't have one. There's a complaint in your packet about Tina not being truthful again. In the last meeting, she said that she was parked on private property during the concert. I went through my footage. That was not the case. Maybe partly on private property, but mostly on the rail trail. Again, setting a bad example for everyone around here by driving past the authorized vehicles only sign. There's also complaints in there about how the last meeting went, the disorderly comments that were allowed, someone interrupting me, but me getting, when I responded, me getting reprimanded, but also the heckling, the multiple interruptions from folks up here. If you have something to respond to, or anyone in the audience does, you can get your own time and do that. But it can be considered censorship otherwise. Also, the smoking complaint, my gosh, John Clark, I don't know why you don't get this, but it is just really inappropriate. And from now on, because it affects my ability to think and speak, and even if I have to use my inhaler, it affects my ability to think and speak, I will approach it from a First Amendment standpoint. And in case you guys aren't aware, the township is already on the radar for First Amendment issues. I'll pass this around. Perhaps your sister-in-law has let you know, you know. So, the ADA notice, I started talking about this at the end of the last meeting. I found out that you're supposed to have an ADA notice, so I asked for it. Tina made me FOIA that. It's really inappropriate because anyone should be able to walk in here and get an ADA notice, right? But you made me FOIA it. I mean, you could just admit if you don't have one. You probably didn't have one. A lot of places don't.
We didn't have one yet.
Okay, well, that's great, but you could have just admitted it rather than making me FOIA it, versus your sister-in-law down at the township just said, hey, we don't have it, and then she sends it to me when it was ready. I can respect that. I can't respect someone making me FOIA something that's public. So I have in your packets there is information about ADA classes. I hope you all take them, because according to the notice, you are all the arbiters of that here. And I don't think there's much knowledge here based on what I've seen. So you all sitting in the positions you are in, I sure hope you take those classes. It was $5, just a few hours of my time, and I learned an awful lot from it. Now, as the Holden lease comes up, I hope the questions are answered, because the responsible body would answer the questions of why they need to lease land. Did the planning commission, as I asked, did the planning commission miss something in the plans to not account for garbage cans? Are the garbage cans going to be right near the Veterans Memorial? Because based on the pictures, that looks like that to me, and that seems really quite inappropriate. Now, the concert's over there in the park. The lawyers have said, well, if vehicles are there for recreational purposes, even though the deed says you're not supposed to use the park for parking, the lawyers have said if you're there for recreational purposes, it's fine. But there are apparently no guidelines and no limits. There is no safety information about those concerts. So, my brother used to have a 13-ton Army truck, used it for recreation, could have driven it right in there and blocked up the whole park. What if somebody wants to park an RV in there? If you have no guidelines, anything can happen, right? And that's incredibly irresponsible of any municipality. Also, I want to note that at the last concert, someone who was there reported to me that there was a political comment made, and made them very uncomfortable, because it was, how many people like the color red, is what she reported to me. Made her and her husband extremely uncomfortable there, and that is paid for with taxpayer money, and that should not happen. Thank you.
Do I have to sign up for public time, or is it just I can
No,
speak?
you-
Okay. Just real quick, going back to the park situation, I wanted to let you know that when the other members met with the tree trimming people, there was talk about putting fence only 3 feet wide at the heads of all where the trails are gonna be. Like a nice 3-board fence, so no recreational vehicles can get through there, to keep, keep it more of a walking path and even a bike path if need be. Just trying to remember other things like that, just to try and keep it down, keep it nice, and then benches along the way, because it's beautiful property back there. So just want to let everybody know that was part of the discussion that was referred to me. So that's it.
Thank you. Any other public time? Okay, we'll move right along, unfinished business. Roadside park restroom still on hold.
Nothing to report. Do you guys want me to just take that off the agenda
I
until
was
we do
gonna
have
say,
something
it's
to
about-
report? Okay. Thank you.
You already talked about the water.
And look down below.
Yeah, I knew it was, but you started talking, I went, well, all right,
Just let them go.
it's your report. Holden Heights Suites.
So I have brought with me tonight a proposed lease. I apologize, I didn't hand it out to you before the meeting began.
And I'll just say, I do have it wrote on our agenda as Holden Heights lease. The technical name of the holding company that owns the property back there is Nedlow Holdings LLC. So that's what you'll see reflected in the lease agreement. Just so there's no confusion.
So, as was discussed in the last meeting, the annual rate, would be $5. The way it's drafted, it would be for a 5-year term. And it would require to make sure that there's protections. Now, honestly, if someone were to be injured and there were to be any type of suit against the village or the landlord, we're probably covered by immunity. So it's pretty minimal risk, but even still, it was drafted to require that the tenant provide an insurance policy with the village named as an insured, which seems fairly reasonable. It's a pretty affordable rental rate. So we figured that we would keep the village well protected with an insurance policy specifically covering the dumpster area, and then any walkway or driveway that might be needed to access it. The dumpster area is 8 by 12, so it's 96 square feet is what that comes out to. And the way we drafted it, we did it as to land, so if they want to put a pad in there or whatever needs to be done, as long as it's compliant, obviously, with construction code and with the ordinances, that way they can do it. If they want to make improvements, they got to pay for it. It's not our deal. And the access points, the walkways, the driveway, whatever they need to access it, that's included in the description of premises, is what you'll see in the lease agreement. So there any reference to like insurance policy covering the premises, that's also gonna cover those walkways, those driveways. The payment is due annually, like I said, it's pretty minimal. There is a late fee, that's just a standard part of the lease that we normally use for these things. It's normally about $50, so I left it there. That can be changed, obviously. At the back of it, you'll see on the first page a reference to Exhibit A. Exhibit A is the last 3 pages of the document, which uses the legal description of the property on which the dumpster area will be located, and it also includes the sketches provided by the would-be tenant to show what that's to be. It's a little flexible, and that's how the lease is drafted, so that way if it needs to be closer to the property line, a little further back, or whatever it needs to be to accommodate construction code and applicable ordinances, they're satisfied. So, any questions?
Everybody, too quiet.
It looks pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So is it?
Not like it's on a real property, either, you know.
And it does,
But it's not near the parking lot?
for the purpose of it being screened, not just to put a dumpster, but
Right.
it's to be screened. So there should be a fence around it, so it looks nice. And I think that's kind of the idea of the village's flexibility with it, was that we want it looking nice. So have this in place, and that way there's a
They're
screening
supposed to
around it.
have some kind of cover around them.
How close is this to the Veterans Memorial? I mean, is it real close to it? I can't tell by here. Does anybody know?
You want me to speak up or
Yes,
just wait?
please, cause I'm trying to put myself in.
It'd be on this side of the trees, correct?
Right, it's on
Vet-
the back side of the trees, not up in the front by the Veterans Memorial.
So it would
Correct.
be over near there, near the Veterans.
No, from what I understand, and we measured it, but I don't have, it's quite a ways away, and obviously that is, I don't wanna say a sacred thing, but that'll not even be jeopardized by this at all, so, and, so.
I would love to see that moved into somewhere different and have like flowers and things planted around it. We literally moved it from over in the park one year over there because nobody was seeing it over in the park. I mean, it's not a great location.
That got quickly moved,
Right. they
it
were
came
doing
from
some
the
stuff.
church,
Yeah,
and they wanted it out of there when they started redoing
Right.
different stuff. It's
Well,
been,
should we
what,
think
8
about
years,
another
8,
place
10
for
years
it?
ago?
I would love to see it somewhere else, so.
Just no one even knows it's there.
Right. But that's a whole separate topic, but I just wanted to
Yeah,
put
okay.
that out there.
But
Yeah.
it might get it going too.
Right.
What's the council's pleasure?
And so the next step with this, if the council wishes, would be really, essentially this is gonna be an offer that's presented to the Medlow Holdings LLC. They'll probably wanna review it, 'cause it's 9 pages, or excuse me, 7 pages. So it does have a little length to it. I imagine they'll probably wanna review it, and then if they had revisions, they'd communicate those to me or to the village next, before the next meeting, then we come back together and figure out if this is what you guys wanna do, and what they want to do.
I'll make a motion, we present it to them and take their feedback on it and accept it as approved, or accept it as presented.
Your second.
I'll second it.
have them forward to the holding company or whatever the lease,
Yeah.
dumpster area lease agreement would be. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay.
And Bill, do you want me to get you an electronic copy? And the-
No, just, if you've got one in print right there, that's fine. I
Okay.
can- Thank you
Yeah.
for asking.
F&B water issues.
Brian Lee, I've got the player seat over here too with F&B. We submitted an engineering study proposal to the village to really look at the well and the iron issues and come up with the basis of design for replacing the well and filtering the iron.
Let me interrupt you a
Okay.
little bit, okay? Basically, what we've got is a proposal to do a feasibility study. Right now, your water reliability, your firm capacity is lacking with the one well being down. I think you guys all know this. But the feasibility study will get you some prices on what things are gonna cost, and give you some options on where to go with it. You're also gonna need a feasibility study to do some of the things that Tina has already been exploring, just using SRF or using one of the other funding agencies through USDA or one of those, to fund a project to actually get the system corrected and take a long, hard look at what do you wanna do. You know, you gotta get the reliability taken care of, your insurance, and if you have a fire or something along that lines, that's first and foremost. But what do you do with the iron problems and the manganese problems? We've done this for many, many communities. We're not doing this kind of thing for this size, and we've done a lot of funding also, so we're pretty good at that. We got approximately 30% of the SRF funding that just came out, and there wasn't much of it, so we're pretty proud of that. We do about $100 million worth of projects a year, with some of this low interest funding. And I get why, you know, so a lot of communities wanna use just their own money and not get stuck with a bond, but the funding is 30 years out. You have a need now, and to wait is kind of foolish. And when you look at what happens over time with the cost of these things, it's unbelievable what's happened in my 48 years of doing this. It's just, I can't believe what lift stations cost or wells cost or any other stuff. If you have questions about this proposal, I can answer them. I am kind of pinch hitting for my engineer today, but I'm more than happy. I've been doing it a long time, so I don't really think I have a problem pinch hitting for him. This'll get you on the road versus just punching a well and spending $200,000 to find out you still got iron, you still got problems. You may not have the capacity which I do, so that's, I guess, what I'm here for, so. Does anyone have any questions or concerns or?
So it's $27,000 to do this study,
Yeah.
and then is that applied towards your services if we agree to have you move forward?
You'll need the study to get the grants and get the rest of it. We'll do another project after that. We will be using the data. I did this with Dexter, I'll use them as an example. We did a feasibility study on their wastewater system for that plant, and we're still using it 15 years later. It showed how to expand the plant, how to expand your water system. It'll show those kinds of things for your future stuff, and we're still using it to go back and get SRF money and proceed that way. They bonded the first project, next project's gonna be done with SRF, so it just depends on what all is entailed. We're gonna try and take a long look into the future for you. As the village grows, I know maybe it's not gonna, maybe the township's gonna explode, and you're gonna wholesale a bunch of water to them. It'll look at those types of things and give you some alternatives, so it's a forward-looking thing. You're gonna need it to get SRF funding. You're gonna need to have a feasibility study. It's gonna be a requirement.
Okay, and how long does it take to get the study back if we approve this?
I don't know if you can put a time in there. It should be done in a matter of months. It shouldn't take a great deal of time. I'm thinking inside of 90 days. But we have to have a meeting with you guys. We wanna have a couple meetings in here. One to review what the hell we come up with and make sure we're not out in left field. And make sure that's what you need. So it may take up to easy. What do you wanna do with the study? How much do you want us to explore? What avenues of financial tools do you want us to use? And that does slow the process down from start to finish on this. And I can have a report in your hands in no time, but, it wouldn't do you justice. I need to have a meeting with you, and we need to talk about it a little bit. You may decide, I've had communities decide, well, you know, the red water's okay if it's gonna cost I had one small community years ago, I went in, I said, look, it's gonna raise your water bill $25 a month. That water's okay now. Okay, then fine, then we'll do it. You know, you may see the prices and decide that you don't wanna do that and make it the homeowner's responsibility to put iron removal filters in or however you wanna treat that, so. There are options out there, but if you don't know how much we're dealing with, it's hard to give anybody a choice.
So it sounded like the answer to the question was that the initial 27,000 would not be a discount applied to what might be accomplished.
That's just to do the study itself.
Just two separate jobs.
Yeah. You're gonna need it, but, we'll take care of part of it. If we were going right into a project, then we need to do feasibility. It'd just be one more phase of the project.
I mean, it does seem like a lot when we already know that we need our well number 1 fixed.
Yeah.
27,000 already seems like a lot, when we spent 69,000 already to get the well pulled and inspected. Now it's gonna be another $200,000 just for the well. But what you're saying is, this study could give us other options, is that what you're saying?
We'll look at those, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, you put that other well in, you know, the water quality can change. You know, I know there was iron historically in well 1, I know you didn't have the complaints, but there was iron there. So you could still have a problem. I don't know why it wasn't being pulled out, but you did have red water before, or iron water. You did maybe not as severe as you do with well 3, but with well 1, you did have some iron issues. So we punch another well, I can't guarantee you, I don't think Peerless can either, but that's gonna be a perfect water source.
How deep is that well?
165 feet.
Not bad.
No,
For that area, that particular, could be worse.
Yeah.
I got one 400 inside my house, so I just off the 4 corners.
Are all 3 wells drilled the same depth?
Fairly close, yes. I'd have to-
Did we ever find out if we legally need to have 3 wells, or if there's anything we could do with well 2 to make it?
I think this will help. do that.
Okay, 'cause I know we had
Which
questioned that, talked about that.
increase the capacity on both units.
Right.
This don't.
So we do the work on well 1, it'll help, in the long run, it'll help out well 2, because they're so close together.
Yeah, they're almost, I think, considered one well. They're so close.
So what you're saying, Tina, is legally, we might not have to have 3 wells?
I don't know, I know that had been questioned, and I know we questioned Peerless and we talked about it, so I don't know.
you're not meeting your firm capacity requirements from the state right now.
Right, but what I'm saying is if well 2 could draw more and get to capacity, is what Brian and I had talked about before.
That would take some improvements to well 2.
Right, but I mean, it might be less than the 200,000.
Very well could be. That's part of what we've
Right.
got in here.
So it's more of a capacity, we have
Correct.
to hit a certain capacity, whether we do it in 1 well or 16 wells.
That's your
Yes.
your first order is your capacity isn't where it needs to be. Something's gotta be done to address that, whether that's improve the pumps in well 2, improve,
But well 3 gets us at capacity, right?
it gave you that capacity with well 1.
Okay.
In service, well 1's out of service, so you're back in the same game you were when
Okay.
you punched well 3.
Yeah.
So we're basically limping.
You are.
I'm kinda worried about well 2 going down, and then we're,
I mean,
Well,
luckily, we don't
right,
have a
well.
lot of demand. I mean, our water tower holds a lot. I mean, it's not often that it goes below limits. So we're kinda lucky in that aspect right now, but in the future, if we were to add on people up on the additional stack, Shalimar and Martins Drive, that might change.
I think well number 3 was a little over 100,000.
Was it? I don't remember. That was right when I was coming in.
Yeah.
Is it?
that something we should communicate with people that live out there? That we're having some well trap
They're aware of it.
They are aware,
Yeah.
okay.
Not with the people themselves, but with the engineers.
Okay, well, because they used to come to the
Right.
meetings and they haven't been for a long time, so.
So I don't know, it seems like a lot of money to spend on a study, but at the same time, if it can help us and tell us what we need to do and help us in the long run with funding, I mean, sometimes you gotta spend money for improvements.
To spend money, you gotta spend money to save money.
You really do. It's, you know, Tina, the cost of the well. It's, if you punch it and it doesn't work, now you really blow
Right.
it.
You got a hole in the ground with no production.
And I'd love to find a solution for the rust issue on the north end of town for the residents, so. That's my
So do we need a motion to approve?
Yes.
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 I'd like to make a motion, we approve this for the study, please.
I'll second it.
And moved and seconded to approve the $27,000 for the study. Aye.
So we're limping
All
along.
in favor, say aye.
Roll call.
Aye.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you'll have to be roll call.
I'm jumping ahead of myself.
Clark,
Aye.
Morris,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Griswold,
Yes.
Suzy Clark,
Aye.
Spearing,
I,
Kinkade. Aye.
Okay.
Great.
Motion carried. Any other good news, gentlemen?
I leave that to him.
I guess real quick, not related to the well, I got an email back from, Don Popma at Biotech Agronomics that does lagoon dredging and those things, but actually it just came on my phone, I didn't actually review it yet, so we might making some headway there, starting to get some, I guess, sludge judging and sampling done at the sludge and moving forward with that, so.
And you're loading ferric in it right now.
Yeah, we're putting ferric in right now, so get ready to discharge in October, so.
thank you.
Nothing else, new business,
Nothing.
nothing. One more public time.
I would just raise one point, just as we're in new business, and just that letter just came around, and it seems to indicate that we may have, unconstitutional policy with regard to.
Not us, that's the township.
Oh, just the town.
That's the
Okay,
township,
okay,
yeah.
that's the town. I would just state still,
We
in
don't
that
have a
regard, that it's totally appropriate to have limitations on speech time. Very normal. Every municipality in the state that I know of does that. If you don't have limitations on speech time, what happens is you just have people who stand up and just endlessly rant, and you can't conduct a meeting efficiently. You will be here for hours and hours and hours listening to one person speak, and it's not for everyone else. As I know there's some that's kind of the main point, I just wanted to highlight that, it's a pretty standard practice across the board. There's nothing objectionable, under the First Amendment with regard to limitations on, speaking.
Next, public time.
Just so you know, maybe you should read it first. Having been in contact with fire for months now, that was actually not it at all. I very much understand the limitations on speech time. It is how they went about the policy. And again, I'm just letting you know that I'm aware of our First Amendment rights here. And so with the smoking issue and with the interruptions and that type of thing is what I was talking about, not on time. But if you set 5 minutes, you gotta give 5 minutes, right, to everybody fairly. And allowing heckling is also not a good idea. So I hope with the feasibility study, God, I just find it weird that we're talking about that when we have tens of thousands of barrels of poison just over there that could contaminate all the groundwater for miles, right? So that's gotta be part of it, the feasibility study, and I just find it weird that we're not looking at hooking into another system already, because it's, again, a matter of time. It is capped on the top, and as the experts have told me, that doesn't really matter a whole lot. It only slows it down. It's the bottom that matters, and nobody even knows how those chemicals are gonna react to each other and that type of thing, so weird. All right, I sure hope you do move that Veterans Memorial, because again, as the daughter and granddaughter of veterans, I find it really offensive that we're putting garbage by it, and that area is not that big, that it wouldn't be close. In my opinion, it would be close. I hope the DDA is looking into grants for that park. The state's been giving away millions of dollars to develop parks, and particularly Metamora. We are one of the lowest in the state on having parks available for citizens here. And so, gosh, we have got a pretty good chance of getting that money if we got our act together and applied for some of those grants. So we got to talk about Country Days. Because I came to you for months and talked about Country Days and how the application that you have is just completely inadequate, allowing the chamber to run an event without the answers that are even on there. That's just incredibly irresponsible. And I really don't think governmental immunity is going to protect you if fire lanes aren't maintained. That is a very standard thing with events. And again, is there some kind of magic dust that makes this municipality less liable than all the other ones out there that collect a whole lot of information? So let's talk about what happened out there. Now, first of all, I noticed Tina was out of the office the week of that. And I just find that bizarre. I don't know where anywhere else then you have a deputy running the office, someone who can answer the questions. It's really bizarre. But let's read what the chamber put on their own Facebook page about what was happening. This happened Friday night. They've removed this post, as far as I could tell, but I can read it to you. The only motorized vehicles allowed on the balloon field are vendors, sponsors, and pilots. There are signs that indicate that. We had way too many cars on the field tonight that were not supposed to be there, and it is very dangerous with all the pedestrians, especially little children scurrying about. We do not have a large staff of volunteers to monitor this, and we try very hard to keep it safe. So we'd appreciate it if you cooperate, basically. So things weren't even kept safe out there. Again, that is thousands of people in a small area with very limited egress. As an event professional, I find that just appalling that it was ever allowed. I hope the fire lanes were maintained. I didn't get close to it. When I drove by Jamestown, there were cars on both sides of it, could have blocked the road. There were a lot of people asking about handicap parking because they didn't know if they could get their friends or family into there. And again, that taxpayer money goes to that event. So, gosh, that should be made clear anyway, if we were decent human beings. And then here's another post by the chamber. Last night, the parking field completely filled up by 5 p.m., and due to the overwhelming crowd, yes, people were inventing places to park, and thus exiting was incredibly congested and borderline impossible. Safety was not maintained out there. Not at all, and that should never be allowed to happen again. There was this post in Metamora, Michigan, gang. Where are the police directing traffic? What an absolute bad word, this, sir. That post was made by someone who, throughout here, and I have no reason to doubt this, throughout here says that her husband is an officer who has directed traffic at an awful lot of events, very experienced. And he had his stuff in the car, and he offered to get out there and direct traffic because there was no one directing traffic. I can tell you, it was in the 5 o'clock hour on Saturday. I drove through here. There was nobody at the light directing traffic, and people were just driving through. I drove through Oak Street later that evening, and there was no one directing traffic out there. So there are people trying to cross on the sidewalk. There are cars jumping out of there. It was just completely unsafe. And there are a lot of other comments in here by people who know what they were talking about, and they just were appalled as well and said, hey, we're not going to go anymore if they can't get this down. So you have some time here. Get that application, special event application, fixed. Make sure the chamber knows they're going to have to provide documentation. Hire a fire marshal to get out there and make sure it's safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public time?
Yes, I just wanted to go back to what Brian and this other gentleman, I apologize, I missed your name, but going back to what you guys presented and the village council thinking the study is needed. As a DDA member, I think that's very pertinent, and like I said, I may be killed next meeting I go to for DDA, but I think the DDA and the village are working very cohesively now, as in the past, and I think, like I say, there are some funds that can be contributed to help address this issue. That's I'm just speaking as one person on the DDA, but that's my feeling. I think I applaud the council for realizing that money needs to be spent, because again, we're just going to be on a treadmill going nowhere. So, but that was my 2 cents. So, thank you.
Any more public time? not, I'll entertain one more motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
The motion and second to adjourn, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,